My name is Dan, and I've always had a special interest in road trips. This time, I decided to take a break from the city hustle and go to my friend Mike's country house. Late at night, I was driving in my old car on an abandoned forest road. The trip was supposed to take no more than 3 hours, but things didn't go as planned. After driving for 2 hours, I noticed that my fuel level was rapidly approaching zero. According to my GPS, the nearest gas station was still 20 kilometers away. I started to get nervous, but then I spotted an unknown gas station right in the middle of the forest. It was strange because it didn't show up on my GPS. As I got closer, I noticed the attendant. He was a middle-aged man with cloudy eyes and a somewhat unnatural smile. He inserted the hose into the tank and began to refuel my car.
Ever heard any legends about this place? About the forest spirits?
He asked, without stopping his work. No, I replied shortly, feeling the atmosphere becoming increasingly tense. He finished refueling and came up to me.
It's a full moon tonight,
he said, looking me straight in the eyes.
Whatever happens, do not stop in this forest.
I quickly paid and got back in the car. The car started on the first try, and I hurried to leave. But after 10 minutes, my car suddenly stalled. I remembered the attendant's words and decided to stay in the car until the tow truck arrived. In the darkness outside the window, I began to notice strange shadows. They moved quickly between the trees like something or someone was watching me. Suddenly, the shadows began to change. They were no longer just blurry silhouettes. They started to take shape. These shapes were distorted, hunched, with inhumanly long limbs. Their movements were synchronized as if performing some ancient dance or ritual. They were getting closer, and I felt the air in the car becoming heavy, almost unbearable. Deciding to take action, I fumbled in the glove compartment and found a flashlight. Turning it on and pointing it at the approaching shadows, I noticed that the light was distorting around them as if penetrating through a veil of reality. One of the shadows stopped and seemed to look at me. Where eyes should have been, there was only emptiness. Panic reached its peak. I grabbed my phone and began taking pictures of the shadows, thinking that evidence would be preserved if something happened to me. After taking a few shots, the shadows suddenly disappeared as if dissolving into the air. I didn't wait for another second. The car surprisingly started up, and I sped off, barely missing a figure that suddenly appeared from the darkness. Finally, upon reaching my friend Mike's cottage, I immediately told him everything that had happened.
Dan, I've lived here for several years and drive this road often. There's no gas station there, and there never has been.
My heart stopped. Then I took out my phone to show him the photos I took in the forest, but the screen only displayed blurry images where nothing could be made out, as if something had erased all evidence of my terrifying adventure. Mike looked at me skeptically but then said,
There are a lot of strange legends in these woods. Maybe you encountered one of them, but let's forget about it. Okay, let's not ruin the evening.
I agreed, but deep inside, I knew something unimaginable had happened that night. Even though Mike didn't believe me, I knew that this forest held secrets better left unencountered. Suddenly, my phone vibrated, notifying me of a new message. It was from an unknown number.
Thank you for using our gas station. We hope you arrived safely. Looking forward to seeing you again.
I work for a firm based in Atlanta, but we recently acquired an important client in Asheville, North Carolina. One day, after a long meeting, I decided to drive home late at night to avoid the morning traffic. The road was peaceful, and I enjoyed the beauty of the Appalachians as they passed by. But as I drove by a small lake called Lake Junaluska, I noticed my GPS malfunctioning. It displayed a route that was clearly different from the one I knew. Instead of guiding me south, it pointed me deep into the west, into the mountains. I decided to follow the instructions, thinking it might be a new shortcut. 10 minutes later, I realized my mistake. I was on an old, abandoned road, and my phone lost its signal. The surroundings started to feel eerie. I heard whispers but thought it was just the radio. However, the radio was off. Ahead on the road was an old gas station. Despite the late hour, the lights were on. I decided to stop and ask for directions. When I approached the door, it was opened by a middle-aged woman who looked no different from other women except for a strange, vacant look in her eyes.
"Hello,"
she said.
"it's a late night for traveling, isn't it?"
Yes, but I'm lost. My GPS stopped working, and I don't know how to get back to the highway.
I replied, trying to hide my anxiety. She smiled, but there was something unsettling about her smile.
"Oh, GPS often malfunctions around here. You're not the first to get lost in these parts.
Can you tell me how to get back on the right road?
Just go straight down this road for about 20 minutes and you'll reach the highway. But be careful, there are many unexpected turns,"
she said, never taking her strange gaze off me.
Why are you still here? The gas station looks abandoned.
I asked, increasing my anxiety.
"Oh, I'm always here, in case someone like you gets lost. People who wander in here often need help."
Anyway, thank you for the help.
I said, already heading back to my car.
"Please, be careful,
She said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes.
and remember, not everyone who gets lost finds their way back."
She showed me how to get onto the main road, and I quickly got into my car and drove along the indicated route. But after just a few miles, I thought I saw flickering headlights in my rearview mirror. At first, I thought it was just another traveler, also lost on this vast night. However, as I made several turns, the car still remained behind me. I decided to check if I was being followed, and deliberately made several unexpected maneuvers. The vehicle, barely lagging behind, continued to follow me. Now, I had no doubt. I was being pursued. My heart started to race, and I nervously looked around, trying not to lose control of the car. Thoughts were swirling in my head about what this could be. Someone local, some madman, or something inexplicable. I decided to get to the highway as quickly as possible, where it would be easier for me to lose my pursuer or at least find help. Finally, I reached the main road and sped up, putting distance between myself and the car behind me. It seemed like the pursuer had lost interest. I allowed myself to relax only when I reached Asheville and stopped at the nearest gas station. I glanced at my phone. Several missed calls from an unfamiliar number had appeared on the screen. I decided to ignore them and deleted the log. The next day, while sharing my story with a client, I heard about that woman and the burnt-down gas station. That part didn't surprise me, but then my client said something that made me freeze.
"You know, it's strange, but there have been several reports of stalking on that road. People said a car followed them and disappeared when they reached the highway. They say it's the spirit of that woman, testing how alert travelers are who end up on that road."
I went pale, recalling the headlights in the rearview mirror and the missed calls on my phone. Since then, I've tried to avoid late-night drives, especially on unfamiliar roads. And every time I pass by Asheville, I can't help but remember that night and the mysterious events that still leave me bewildered. My wife, 2 daughters, and I drove home after celebrating Thanksgiving at my parents' house. It was nighttime, and a downpour made the road ahead nearly invisible. Everything was perfect. We were joking and listening to music until we realized the fuel gauge was dangerously low. Luckily, we saw the glowing sign of a gas station ahead. I pulled over, and we decided that the kids would stay in the car while my wife and I went to pay for the fuel. The gas station was eerily quiet. No clerks, no customers. An old man appeared from behind the counter as we approached. There was something strange about his eyes. After paying, he said,
"Beware the road. It sometimes claims its own."
My wife glanced at me, puzzled, but we shrugged it off. When we returned to the car, our daughters told us they had seen a weird figure pass by. I felt a sense of dread but decided not to alarm them and drove on. About 15 minutes later, we were engulfed in thick fog. Visibility dropped significantly. That's when I saw him, a middle-aged man standing right in the middle of the road. I slammed the brakes. He approached the window and said he was lost, asking for a ride to the nearest town. We agreed, and he sat in the back seat next to our daughters. Oddly, he never introduced himself. A few minutes into the drive, he began muttering something under his breath. The girls grew nervous, and I asked if everything was all right. He didn't answer. Suddenly, he said,
"You shouldn't have stopped. She's coming for you."
The next moment, the car stalled. All electrical systems shut down, and the fog grew even thicker. A woman emerged from it. Slowly, she moved towards us. As she reached for the door handle, the stranger in the back seat shouted some sort of incantation. The woman vanished, and the car roared back to life. We sped away, not looking back. The stranger revealed that he was a ghost, bound to this road, and had saved us from the evil spirit that was his wife. She had become malevolent after dying in a car crash on this road and now claims the lives of random passersby. As we reached the town, he vanished, leaving us with a sense that this was not just a creepy adventure, but a life-altering warning about the fine line between life and death.